Right. Okay. Okay. Well, let's make a start now then, because we're a couple of minutes behind and we've got a bit to get through, and I'm sure we're all keen to get through everything that's on the agenda for tonight. Just to bring everybody up to speed, I'm sorry I've sort of shoehorned this into the agenda a bit at the last minute, but this comes from an approach that we had from Rebecca Evans, who's the member of the Senate for the area, about a scheme about e-scooters for the area. As some of you may be aware, there's been a recent change in the legislation, which means that hired e-scooters are now legal. Up until quite simply, they were not. Now, I've invited Jared and Paul along, just to give us a brief introduction to the scheme that they're involved in. As I sort of said, this has come from Rebecca Evans. It's an information gathering process at this stage, but I hope you don't mind as a council, but I've invited them along to give us a presentation today about the scheme and to have a look whether we might be interested. Are we okay to proceed like that, Steve, and just bring them forward on the agenda?
That's right. Yeah, we just need to adjourn the meeting to let them speak and questions. So whenever you're ready.
So are the council in agreement with that? Are the council happy with that?
Yes.
We'll let them. Yeah. So if I can hand over to you, Jared and Paul, and if you could just tell us about the scheme that you're involved in.
Yeah, that's fine. I can take the lead on this. So as you mentioned, my name is Jared Morris. So I'm the founder of GoIA. I've got a bit of a presentation to share. So if I just share my screen, and then we can go through a few points briefly and show some images as well, then, which is always very helpful. So if I just share my screen. Oh, apparently it says host disabled screen sharing.
Steve, can you give him access to share screen?
Yeah, I've just done that now as he was speaking. Can you try now?
Right. Okay. Let's try that again. Here we go. 2 seconds. I'm just going to change the preferences on my side, apparently. It's good, isn't it? Okay. Try that again. Right, can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Perfect. We got there in the end. Joys technology. So as you mentioned, so the law around e-scooters was changed back at the end of June for go live in July. What that basically meant was that the law was changed by the Department for Transport for legalisation for hire operators only. So the normal people you see riding on the streets is still illegal. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to regulate it as much as possible now, so the hire operators can have the scooters out, and then the non-regulated owner-operated scooters are not being used. So a couple of things they've put in place now for approved hire schemes. So they've limited the speed of the scooters to 15.5 miles an hour as a maximum speed. Obviously, you couldn't go lower than that, but that's what they've said so far. The scooters must be covered by a motor vehicle insurance policy to cover third-party risks. If they bump into someone, a vehicle, or even a person, then they're covered for that. They must have front and rear lights, and the riders must be 18 years of age and have a provisional or full UK driving license. So, you see a lot of people under the age of 18 riding these in places they shouldn't be riding them, terrorising places. So that's the reason for that. In terms of where they're allowed, just very quickly, e-scooters will be allowed on roads, cycle lanes and tracks where possible. So as long as it's safe for them to be there and they're deemed as marked out clearly as cycle lanes or tracks, then they're allowed to go on there. So who are we as a business? So we've been in the press recently. You might have seen some stuff on ITV and BBC and a few bits in the Western Mail regarding us launching e-scooter schemes across the UK with a particular concentration on Wales. So we're really committed to trying to reduce the number of car journeys, especially in inner city towns and little areas like that. First of all, from decreasing congestion, but also emissions and just making them a generally nicer place to live. So we're speaking to councils all across Wales, as I said, but we're also speaking to places like Liverpool, Bristol, Buckinghamshire. So we're really trying to take it as far as possible. So the way the app works, I'm not sure if any of you have used e-scooters when you've been in places like Paris. They've been running those e-scooters for 3 years. So it's all based on an app solution. So you basically, you have a mobile phone application. That mobile phone application, which is called GoIA, that will then guide you to your nearest bank of scooters effectively. So we're running this as a docked model, very much like the Santander bikes you already have in Swansea. So you'd find the scooters, you'd walk to one of the scooters, you then unlock the scooter using the mobile phone application, and then you're free to ride that scooter then, charged on a minute-by-minute basis. So we charge 10 pence per minute, which is lower than the UK average, but obviously they can be used for as long or as little as anyone wants. In terms of the technology we've got into them from first of all from a safety point of view, and also from a tracking, law enforcement and accountability point of view. All the scooters are fitted with very sophisticated GPS technology, which is actually embedded inside the scooter. So the reason for that is we can enforce things like low speed zones, no ride zones, and we can also set boundaries. So basically, if for example you wanted to say, if someone was going down the cycleway towards Verdi's and you didn't want them going 15.5 miles an hour, as soon as they break that boundary on the map, that will instantly slow the scooter down to walking pace, for example, or even power off the scooter completely. So it's really sophisticated in that way. Because I know a lot of people are worried, 15.5 miles an hour, it is quite quick, especially with a vehicle that's going on a cycleway. So being able to limit them that way and also enforce areas for no riding at all is a really good thing with technology. In terms of the other technology we've got on the scooters, by downloading the application, you're agreeing for us then as a user to basically know who's riding the scooter, where you're riding the scooter, and how you're riding the scooter. So unlike the owner-operated scooters, which are just ridden by Joe Bloggs who's bought one from Halfords, we know who's been involved in an accident if there's one. We know if they've been riding antisocially, then we've got that information as well. If they do things like, even if they're on the road and they jump a red light, that's still treated the same way as a road incident, and they can still get points to their license or a fine for those things. So it's full accountability, and that's a really open book sharing procedure then with law enforcement and the council. So the scooters we've got here, these are the ones we just had recently. So they don't look like normal scooters. You probably see that. They're a bit more substantial, and they're actually manufactured for sharing specifically. So there's a few key features on them, which are made for the sharing industry. So we've put on the side of these high-vis strips. So these are the same strips that they use for back of highway maintenance vehicles, council vehicles. And the reason we've put these on there is it gives a better side profile of the scooter, but also they're more visible for pedestrians. So we've had consultation with the Royal National Institute of the Blind, who are particularly concerned regarding scooter usage. First of all, from the point of view of are they visual enough so people can see them, and this is one of the things we took on board and implemented, was putting high-vis strips on the side of them. They've got lights on the front, and they've got brake lights on the back as well. Little kickstands so they can't fall over. I've just got to pick a picture of Rebecca Evans there, who was trying one of our scooters the other day down outside Verdi's, which was good on a nice sunny day. And these are the scooters which are limited to 15.5. So you can see we've got a helmet there. I know some of you are probably wondering, are helmets compulsory? Helmets are not compulsory, but we do encourage their use. So if anyone's downloading our application and they do subscribe to one of our plans or a pay-as-you-go model, we give them the option to have a helmet sent to them, and that's one of these helmets which you can see there, and then they can have their own helmet. We did look at things like helmet sharing, but then that was pre-COVID, and now no one can share anything like that, so that's made it pretty difficult for us. So we do encourage it. From a training point of view as well, just whilst we touch on the safety, we're teaming up with CBT training companies. So what they'll be doing, they'll be offering optional training to riders, and that will be things like road safety situations you might find yourselves in riding the scooters. And those videos will also be available on our application, so you can always refer back to them if you want any guidance. Where the scooters will be held is, again, it's a bit similar to the Santander bikes. So they're docking stations. So the one there on the left-hand side, that's a charging docking station. What that actually does is when you dock the scooter into the station, you basically hook it on, and that then charges the scooter for the next use. So that will give a full charge in probably 4 hours. So the scooters are always at a good level. The one on the right-hand side is a scooter parking station. So that's, for example, if you're at a particular event on, we could put that in place to offer temporary parking. And I think what we're trying to achieve with this, and I know a lot of cities try and do this, but particularly with places like Swansea and Mumbles as a bit of a bottleneck sometimes on the busier days, we're trying to discourage people from driving into Mumbles and almost do like a park, rather than park and ride, park and scoot. So you park down somewhere like Singleton Park, for example, you jump on a scooter and you ride a scooter down the cycle path into Mumbles. And from a congestion point of view, if you're taking those cars off the road, and we're seeing so many conversations recently, especially with so many car journeys now due to COVID becoming single car journeys. There's only one person in that car, which is obviously great from an infection control point of view, but then from a congestion point of view, it's a nightmare. So we're hoping to have, our proposal would be, if we take this forward, to have these docking stations in Swansea with a particular concentration on the seafront, in line with where the cycleways are. And then literally people can find them at the docking stations, start the journey there, and then return them back there as well. So that was a very whistle-stop tour. I know obviously we're pressed for time on e-scooters and kind of what we're doing. I know there's probably a few questions, so open it to anyone who's got any questions regarding what we're doing, safety, any concerns, and then hopefully we can address them.
I think the key thing, just to add as well, if you don't mind, is the Welsh Government are fully supportive of what we're looking to do. And in fact, they announced an additional £38 million a few weeks ago to improve walking, cycling and scooting. So it is part of their micro-mobility strategy. And clearly what we're also looking to do is very much in line with clean air strategies within cities and towns within Wales. And we do see this as the next stage in micro-mobility. So there is political support. We are due to make a presentation to Swansea Council on the 2nd of September. That's to the leader, head of transport, and also some key officials. So we're hoping that Swansea and the surrounding region could be one of the first areas in Wales to actually move forward with our proposal. And we're also in talk with a lot of private sector companies that would be happy to have their our docking stations on their land. So we'll have a very thorough network in place, hopefully, as we move forward. So there is broad support, and hopefully what Jared has explained tonight hopefully may have put at rest some of the issues you might have had before having this presentation. But as Jared says now, we're clearly open to questions and anything you've got to ask. Okay,
can I just kick questions off just in the first instance? Are there any companies which are based in Mumbles at the moment that you're in discussion with, or have you got any connections with, or any of the chains that we're based here? And also, I suppose the main question, the bottom line is, cutting to the chase, what is it you're looking to the council for?
So I think with regards to your first question, we haven't reached out to any particular companies in Mumbles yet. We have spoken to companies in the Uplands. So the guys that own Bruno Nunes, who I know quite well, who owns Peppermint Brew House in Uplands, and a few other businesses in the Swansea area. He's very keen on supporting us in this venture from two sides. First of all, for having docking stations at some of his premises, but also with what they're doing now in the restaurant industry. They'll be looking to use these for some of the delivery drivers as well. So rather than using cars and mopeds, they'd be giving these to some of the delivery drivers to actually go and do low emission deliveries, basically. From a council point of view, so from a wider Swansea Council point of view, the Department of Transport obviously put out the guidance at the end of June. What they needed back from the councils, which they did get from Swansea, was an expression of interest. What that then turns into is a procurement process. That procurement process is then put out to other scooter providers. We're the only one in Wales at the moment. We're the only Welsh company. I was born and bred in Neath, so I think I'm definitely the only scooter operator from Neath. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to obviously give as much information to people like you and other councillors as to what the benefits of this are, so they can make an informed choice then as to whether this is for the town and whether this is something which is going to enable more micromobility.
Okay.
Yeah, I think from Martin, from the community council's point of view, I think what we're hoping for is that obviously you understand what is being proposed and can see the benefits of it from a tourism point of view, from a travel point of view across the Mumbles area. And obviously Swansea Council, I would have thought, would look to engage with yourselves to get your opinion and view on this as a key stakeholder in the region. So from our point of view, it'd be great if you could understand that and then talk positively with Swansea Council about how you see this being used and the benefits of it.
Yeah. Can I throw it over to the rest of the councillors, please?
Can we put it on full screen again, Mark?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we can't see anybody.
That's better.
Okay, Rob.
hi, Jared. Just a couple of questions. Bombard you with them rather than ask you one after the other. First of all, are they collapsible? Secondly, how much do they cost to buy if I wanted to buy one for myself? And are they easy to charge? Are they easy to charge at home through normal plug? And what are they like going uphill? Because obviously we live in quite a hilly place.
Yeah, no problem at all. So the collapsible question, no, they're not. There's a reason for that. So the ones you see on the streets are collapsible. These ones are not collapsible from a sturdiness point of view. So if you actually felt one of these, they're a lot heavier than normal ones, and they're reinforced as well. And that's because all the brain of the scooter effectively is in the stem. So if you make them collapsible, there's more things to go wrong effectively. In terms of the question about how much, there won't be the option to buy these off us, and there's two reasons for that. First of all, the DFT only allow higher operators to have them on the roads. What we are doing is we are offering, so for example, if you didn't live near a docking station and it wasn't convenient for you, you can actually have a long-term hire. So what that would mean was you'd effectively have the scooter over a 12-month period, and you pay for that monthly on a subscription, and then you charge it at home instead. But because you're paying for that in a long-term hire, that's still classed as a hire. So therefore, you're allowed to ride on the road. In terms of how much they cost us, these are probably twice as much in terms of cost compared to a normal scooter you buy from Halfords. So you're talking close to £800 to £900 per scooter. But that's because they are meant for shared use. They're meant to last 18 to 20 months. In terms of the uphill question, yes, they can go uphill is the easy answer. The gradient, they can do up to 35% gradient with ease. I've been up steeper personally, but also from that point of view as well, you can always push them up the same as a normal scooter, or the same as a bike. You can still push for them, but yeah, it's a case of they can go uphill.
Cheers. And
just on the hill thing as well, actually, there's a benefit of that. So with the scooters we've got, as they go downhill, they charge the batteries. So it's regenerative charging. So as the wheel turns going downhill and you're freewheeling, that then charges the batteries back up, which is a benefit for us as well.
Richard?
Rob asked one of my questions anyway. However, they've been up and running in France for 3 years, I think you said. Yeah. What issues they had with them?
So the main issues they had in France, they launched as a dockless model. So effectively what they had there was they drop 500 scooters onto the streets of Paris. Those scooters would be positioned in no set location. You'd walk up to a scooter with an app in the same way, but then you could literally scoot to a restaurant, leave it outside on the pavement. Worst case scenario, that scooter would fall over. Someone would trip over the scooter, a cyclist would hit the scooter, and that became a real menace almost for the city. And it's not just in Paris that's happened, that's across the world. So by running a dockless model, that does lead to scooter littering, they call it. But by running a docked model where you can't actually end your journey until that scooter is docked back into a pre-designated position, that minimizes that, because these are stuck to a particular point. So very much like the Santander bikes, you have to start from a station and then return to a station, and you're still charged for that scooter until that the lock is put back on the scooter.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Rebecca?
So just to clarify,
the proposal is not that Mumbles Community Council invest in the infrastructure to make this possible. It's that we are supportive if Swansea Council come knocking.
Yeah, the investment is purely on our part. So we're investing in all the infrastructure, software, and hardware.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, any other question? Ian? You muted, Ian.
Well, thank you for your presentation, Jared. I noted that you put cycling, walking, and scooting. Do you have a view on pedestrians with cycling, walking, and scooting?
Well, in terms of the risk to pedestrians?
Yeah.
I think...
Yeah, we have a very busy promenade, and
yeah,
so is everything.
Yeah, I think one of the things, and this is a question we've addressed from a few angles. First of all, with busy areas, but also with some of the disability charities as well. Obviously, these scooters are only allowed in cycle lanes, and if they're used on the pavements, obviously we can limit the usage on some pavements in pedestrianised areas using our technology. But if they are going down the cycle lane, it's very much the same as a bike going on the cycle lane. Pedestrians need to be aware of the scooters, and vice versa. Scooters need to be aware of the pedestrians. So for us, it's all about the education piece and doing that training with the scooter users as well. Obviously, it's not mandatory; it is optional, but we would encourage it. But equally, having the support of councillors like yourselves and giving that education piece to the local community on, there are going to be scooters around. But from our point of view as well, just from going back to what I said regarding accountability, and if something did happen and there was a pedestrian incident, if that happened on Joe Bloggs who had a scooter from Halfords, that person could easily just scoot off and leave the scene with no accountability. Whereas if there was an incident with a pedestrian, then we'd know who that person was, we'd know where they were at that time, we'd know how they were riding. So there are things like there is a bell on the scooter, so the people riding the scooter can make people aware of their presence. There are lights, there are high vis strips. I think it's just a case of making everyone aware of the dangers on both sides and just increasing that awareness.
And in addition to that as well, we are engaging quite extensively with charities such as the RNAB and helping address any issues that they have. So we are very much mindful of any issues that could be in place before we launch. And we are addressing that as we speak. So those conversations are ongoing and they've been very positive.
I think something to add to that as well that we can also do, we're very agile in the way that we can change things. So for example, if we started the trial at 15.5 miles an hour and you wanted to reduce that as a trial to see if people rode a bit more sensibly, we can reduce that on a blanket basis. And we can also enforce particular speed limits in particular areas. So we're flexible in the sense of our hardware so sophisticated that we can make those changes very quickly, literally with one click.
So in essence, we could have a tailored campaign for the Mumbles area, which would be speeds, etc., dictated by people like yourselves in consultation with us. That would all be planned out.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your presentation. I think at this juncture, I think the best course of action from our perspective is to refer it back to our respective committees, particularly probably tourism and environmental, for consideration. I think we as a council as well probably need to make contact with the City and County of Swansea to keep the communication channels open with them to ensure, how this is progressing, to make sure that if there is a development in this area, that we play a key role in it. So I think at that point, I think this is the most we can do at this point, because obviously it's still in the planning phase. But thank you for coming along today. Thank you for the information. From my point of view, I'll be perfectly honest, laying my cards on the table. I think it sounds very exciting. But obviously there are other people in the community and other people in the council who might have other points of view. And by referring it to the other committees, this is how we can get it open to discussion. So I've got your email addresses, I've got your phone numbers. I'll leave it with us for now, and let's keep the communication channels open. But thank you again for your presentation.
Thank you for your time, and obviously any questions, just fire them over.
Thank you very much.
Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.
So should we go back to the full agenda now?
We normally need to
Reconvene the meeting.
restart the meeting.
Yeah. So can we all agree to reconvene the meeting?
Yeah. Is this it? This is the grand total. Sound
This is the grand total. This is the thing is, Will Thomas is on his way, and I think Carrie is on her way as well. But I think this is always an issue, a meeting in August, to be honest. Rebecca, did you want to say something?
We have previously mentioned that we might want to amend our standing orders to not meet in August.
Yes. To be
We
honest,
we'd have to do that at the AGM. So let's try and remember for next.
You know, I've been kicking myself. I said this last year. So yes, let's remember that.
Sorry, Martin, you can change your standing orders at any time.
Oh, can we? But anyway, well, we're here now. But there are a couple of things I did want to.
Martin.
Go on, Richard.
On the WhatsApp page for the council, Carrie's just put on it. Can you let Steve know she's just finished? Hopes to join us by 7. Can he delay environmental until then?
Yeah, I'm sure we can move things around a bit for then. I was hoping that maybe we could be pretty much concluded by 7, but anyway.
Let's go for it.
This is what I mean, because, you know, there are a few things we added in the diary for today. There are a couple of things I think that we probably need to do. That scooter thing, to be honest, that came in last minute. I think it's quite useful that we do that. I'm jumping ahead on the agenda here, but the traffic calming for the top of West Cross Lane, it would be useful if we can get that out of the way now rather than wait until next month. But yes, you know, I am of the agreement. Meetings in August, I don't think are a good idea personally. And particularly, it's not so probably bad this year because everybody's staycationing at home with COVID, isn't it? But next year could be even worse again. Anyway, let's go back to declarations of interest. Anybody got any declarations of interest?
Sorry, Martin, we need to start officially. We haven't actually done while the meeting started. Apologies.
I thought we'd done that, sorry. Apologies for absence then.
Councillor Timble, Pam Erasmus, Adam Gilbert, Sarah Keaton, Miles Langston, Philip Reason, Rebecca Singh, and Linda Tyler-Lloyd.
Okay, thank you for that. Declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest? No. Minutes of the monthly meeting held on the 14th of July 2020. Anybody got any issues to raise in relation to that?
No.
Okay. So shall we move on to the clerk's report then, please?
Lovely, thank you. Just to let you know, obviously, Carwyn Thomas has resigned, which leaves us with 2 vacancies now, which we can't fill until February next year at the earliest. So we'll be stepped down to 16 until then. Secondly, I had an email from the MP for Gower. Unfortunately, it came in too late to put it on the agenda, but I said I would raise it with you just to take a sort of sounding on how you might feel. It's to do with the behaviour of cyclists on the prom, emptying their nostrils and spitting and so on. And she wants to know what we would feel about supporting putting signs on the prom to ask them to refrain from doing so.
Anybody got any thoughts on that? I doubt if anybody's going to really object.
Yeah, I'll come in on a thought on that. With regard to through the promenade, I did mention it with the presentation that we've just had. Tim Bull did do a report regarding cycling on the prom, the speed, people coming out of the pedestrian lane and going into the cycling lane, people being knocked down. And now, it was raised at the time as signage. Now, how much signage are we prepared to put on the promenade? Now, if it's signage actually painted on the asphalt that's there, as opposed to a sign on a post, perhaps that could be looked at, I suppose. But you know, it's a bit of a difficult one to try and prevent somebody from clearing their throat on the prom, or their nose for that matter. I don't know. There's a bit of a limit to how far we can go with signage. I agree. The presentation, they said it's educating people with e-scooters and so on. I think we're going to get to a stage that we won't be able to use the prom because there's going to be too many people there, or it's going to be too dangerous, or you won't be able to see the prom for the number of signs that are there. So we just have to, you know, look at all these options. It seems a very fair comment, but how on earth does one police it?
Becca, and then Rob.
Martin, we've discussed the prom at Environmental Committee recently because obviously it's an important asset in terms of our active travel offer and reducing congestion and emissions. But the more we encourage people to use it, the more dangerous, frankly, it becomes. So we've agreed that the way forward on that is to seek a meeting with the people at Swansea Council who manage the whole of the prom, because whatever we do on our spot, you know, it needs to be consistent with the whole of the prom, in my view. So I just wonder whether this is something that we could put on that agenda. I agree with Ian that we can't just stick a sign up about every single issue because it will become ineffective. So it needs to be, I think it needs to be part of a whole review of use of the prom and how we can encourage considerate behaviour by all its users.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rob and then Richard, please.
I agree with Tonya that some sort of warning for people not to do it would be great. However, I also agree with Ian and Rebecca, you cannot clutter up the place with signage. You can't enforce it because we have nobody to enforce it. And unfortunately, we live in a country where people take no notice anyway. Only a couple of days ago, there was some vandalism up at Oystermouth Castle with a cherry tree that Rotary had planted there recently in the last couple of years. Now, I was up at the Castle Field a couple of weeks ago having a socially distanced beer with Adam, and we saw teenagers who looked about 12 or 13. The girls were wearing dresses you would see in wine stores. They were off their faces and coming up to us asking us to buy them booze and tobacco. Now, obviously, we told them no, but that's you know what society is like at the moment out there. People will not listen to what you say. There's entitlement, and they just do what they like anyway, and there's nobody to stop them doing it.
Okay, thank you for that, Rob. Can I bring Richard in now?
Yeah, basically I'm agreeing with what people have said. Enforcement, although I never served locally, a friend who does, is still serving locally, and the police aren't coping with what they've got, dealing with serious issues, so they won't be enforcing anything on the prom. With signage though, I know most people ignore them. Well, a lot of people do. We always remember the ones that don't, but I think signs do have a place to play. Is it worth having a sign somewhere coming to Mumbles saying this is not a high-speed zone? Because again, yeah, I understand you can't have signs everywhere, but you do get cyclists thinking they're in the Tour de France or wherever. I know there's talk about it not being a cycle zone there. It's going to be shared space. It's something that perhaps needs to go to environmental.
Yeah. I'd like to sort of come in by is echoing what Rob says. I've just been down the beach today. At this time of the year, there are no dogs supposedly allowed on the beach. There's plenty of signs up saying no dogs on the beach. There's plenty of dogs on the beach, simple as, right? Now, going back to what Ian said there, Timble did in fact do a report some time ago, I will, on this whole issue of cycling on the prom. I doubt if you've seen it, Rebecca, have you?
No, no, is it?
You haven't seen it either. Well,
No, I haven't seen it.
I would say I think it's a good report, to be honest, right? He's covered a lot of really useful things there. And one of the things that he covers there, and Ian hinted on that, is this sort of thing about putting signage, not up on the wall, but putting signage on the different paths to separate the cycle path from the walking path, because particularly for visitors to the area, unless you're familiar with the area, which one is the cycle path and which one is the walking path is not clear. That said, personally, I don't think that's enough. I am amazed that we have not had a fatality on that seafront, particularly of a child, because the way that you see some of the cyclists going up there, and children just will not pay attention to running across cycle paths and sort of stuff like that. So I really think this is an issue that we do need to visit. We do need to revisit. We need to dig out that report that Tim did, revisit that report, look at some of the recommendations that was in that report, and be talking, like Rebecca says, to the City and County of Swansea. The trouble is, I think personally what we need to do on that seafront is find some way of separating the wheel traffic from the foot traffic, and we haven't really got the resources for that. So all I'm sort of saying, I think this is the signage for people entering the nostrils and the chests and things like that. Okay, that is one thing, but I suppose a lot of it comes down to some sort of antisocial behaviour and how we manage this antisocial behaviour. But I think the whole question of the prom and managing traffic on the prom is something that we need to seriously consider going forward.
Do you think, Martin, with the Welsh Assembly's proposal for widening the prom, that something might be done then?
Yes, to be honest, that's what I was thinking exactly the other day, to be honest. I think, well, this is a good opportunity to be actually doing something. And you know, obviously, City and County of Swansea are going to have a key input into that. These things like these e-scooters, I've seen them working in Paris. I've seen them working in London. They are just becoming commonplace. I think particularly with the suggestion that we had in the presentation there about encouraging people to do a scoot and ride with maybe parking at the university and then coming up on a scooter there. That would be a fantastic way of reducing the amount of traffic coming into Mumbles, to be honest. But all I'm sort of saying, all these issues are all quite interrelated, all quite complex. There's no easy answer to any of it. But so all I'm sort of saying, this is something we need to keep on the agenda. I think we need to dig out that report from Timble and use that as a starting point. Because one of the things I thought, to be honest, about that report from Timble, I seem to remember I saw it just after I became a councillor. And we had it and we discussed it, and then nothing seemed to happen with it, you know. So let's use it, you know. I'm not saying everything in it we're going to use it, but let's use it as a basis of a discussion and use it as a basis of discussion going forward. So,
can I come in on one final comment, please?
Yeah, Ian, go on.
Yeah, thanks. With regards to the prom, you know, I was looking at some of the mail that the council has received recently from members of the public, and their sort of interpretation of Mumbles is of a rather shabby, tired-looking place, and the prom would probably fit in with that in certain areas, and in particular around the dairy car park and the toilets. You know, they're hardly inspiring places. And it really is, it's a huge letdown. Now, the point is, well, who is responsible for that? Who has allowed that deterioration to happen over time? You know, some of it is owned by private individuals, some is owned by city. We don't own any of it. You know, I agree with Rebecca's point of speaking with the city, and I like the idea that she was viewing the prom as a continuous, shall we say, trail, as it were. But there's heavy wear and tear, shall we say, and pinch points as you come down into the South End area.
Yeah.
So I think it's a huge project to take on board to try and put everything right.
Yeah.
But if we were to do it, there are areas that certainly need cleaning up, whether it's new bins, new benches, you know, something ought to be done.
Well, yeah, you know, I was involved in the litter pick there on Sunday, and to be honest, within 15, 20 minutes, I filled up a huge bag of rubbish with just around by the dairy car park. So, and, you know, that's improvement, but, you know, that was on Sunday. I bet it'll be back to the same state again. But again, as you sort of said, all I think that we can do at this point is this is something we need to keep on revisiting and something we need to keep on our agenda. Will, do you want to come in?
Yeah, really quickly. The urban design contractor has been appointed by Swansea Council, and they're doing so they've been appointed to design everything apart from the engineering part of the seawall.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's about pushing Mark Thomas to try and get the community. I have brought it up and said, can the community council be consulted? And they've said yes. But it's about, you know, yourself or a head of whatever relevant committee messaging and saying, can the community council be brought in as early as possible on the consultation? Because things like bins and signs will and can be paid for by that, you know. So it's there to do. So yeah, just to bring that up.
Good point, Steve. Can we move on though after this now, please?
Yeah, just to follow up what Will says, I've already been in contact with the company asking for a meeting.
Oh, great. Okay.
So, yeah.
If you keep us informed of that. So let's keep that on the agenda and let's move forward. Okay.
Yeah,
Moving back.
yeah, just to finish my report, then you'll see the
Oh, sorry.
respondent. So that's me finished there, Martin. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions to the clerk? No, thank you very much for that, Steve. So we'll move on to the chair's report, which is available on the chair drive as well. I'll read it out though, as is my custom. One of the main developments of the past few weeks that I am pleased to report is the successful completion of and signing off of the lease for the Ostrom Centre. Councillor Will Thomas and I were able to sign the lease on Friday the 7th of August. This represents the successful completion of a quite extensive negotiation and hopefully the beginning of a fruitful partnership, working relationship with the Ostrom Association, and the opportunity to develop the centre as an exciting and dynamic social and cultural centre for the community, and particularly at this time as we continue to emerge from the COVID-19 lockdown. The negotiations concerning Underhill continue to progress, and we are currently negotiating a number of the legal aspects in relation to the partnership agreement, such as agreeing the back-to-back lease arrangements. I would like to take this opportunity to respectfully remind councillors that, as per the advice received from the consultant at One Voice Wales, that considering the sensitivity and importance of the current negotiations, that all formal communications with Mumbles Community Association be conducted through the MCC officers. I also understand that progress is being made with the skateboard park development, with Swansea and the City and County of Swansea identifying 3 potential sites now for the development. However, we are still waiting to hear for confirmation as to where these are. I am sorry to report that since our last full council meeting, Councillor Carwyn Thomas has resigned his position. Whatever your political persuasion or personal relationship with Carwyn, I'm sure most would agree that he was an enthusiastic and committed councillor, and I believe his loss is a real blow to our capacity as a council. In his resignation email and in subsequent conversations I have had with Carwyn, he cites the negative working environment he encountered at MCC and the impact that that had on his mental health as the reason for his resignation. Whether you agree with Carwyn's analysis or not, that a councillor resigns on those grounds should be cause for concern for us all. We all give our time on a voluntary basis, and surely such an altruistic commitment should not be rewarded with an environment that has a negative impact on an individual's mental health. No one person can address this perceived negativity, and it's up to all of us to reflect on our own behaviour and how it might be seen by others, and to call out negativity when we encounter it. We are not here to agree with each other all the time, and within any functioning council, there needs to be a scope for healthy disagreement and debate, but we also need mechanisms for conflict resolution. And that is something which is on tonight's agenda. No mechanism will work, however, unless we have a clear understanding and commitment from at least the majority of the council that change is needed. Any questions? Will first.
Yeah, just a comment really. I'd just like to echo the loss of Carwyn is, you know, he was a fantastic councillor, really good to work with. I think he worked across parties, everything really well, got on with everyone, and he'd be really missed. I mean, his legacy is substantial for the amount of time he was here. I mean, the Santander bikes was his brainchild, and he pushed that through. Underhill, he was a huge part of getting the Underhill pavilion and changing rooms, you know, pushed forward. And he leaves us with a community plan, you know, which again was his brainchild, and he pushed forward. So he leaves us with that community plan, which hopefully the council will adopt and work towards those priorities for the area for the, you know, for the long-term future. So he'll be sorely missed. Yes.
Rob.
I'd just like to echo what you said as well, Martin. I mean, Carwyn's going to be a massive loss to everybody. He tried to be apolitical about how he worked. And on your later sentiments that you said in your paragraph, it goes to show something, doesn't it, when we've had 5 councillors resign within this term, and we've had at least another 4 who thought about resigning. Mm. It really is a lesson for this council to take a look at itself.
Well, yeah, and it's something we all need to reflect on. I really think that we all need to reflect on this. It's not for us to sort of point the finger at other people. We all need to reflect on this. Like, and it is a body of work that we all need to contribute to. You know, as I sort of said, not only in our own behaviour, but when we see it in the behaviour of others, to challenge it as well. It's not a nice thing. I wish I didn't have to sort of do that. But as you so rightly say, Rob, Carwyn is not the only one, and there have been other people as well who have resigned their positions on various positions in the council as well. Gareth, do you want to come in? You muted, Gareth. You muted, Gareth. And that was the best bit.
Just re-echo what everybody said, but can we, on behalf of the council, send him a letter of thanks, Martin, I think, for all the hard work that he's done in the time that he's been with us on the council?
I think that's a very good suggestion, Gareth, because, you know, as Will so rightly identifies there, is, you know, he has left a deep legacy there, like, you know, the number of projects that he was involved in. So yes, can we have that minuted, Steve, and make sure that we express our thanks and express our thanks and gratitude to Carwyn and for the
that
work.
Sounds like a letter for the toilet wall if ever I heard one.
If you will hang around in those sorts of toilets, Will, you know, that's the sort of stuff you will read. Okay then. So, financial report, Steve, are you talking to this? Or?
Yes, I will. Yeah, it's been in
Yeah.
Dropbox, OneDrive. The first thing we need to do is retrospectively approve the electronic payments that have been made, which is item 1. Is everyone happy with those?
Yeah, it's one of what I've seen. I can't see any
Yeah.
problem.
Similarly, the Barclaycard purchases.
Yeah.
Okay. I just need to draw your attention also to the bank balance, which is just a shade under 600,000.
Okay.
Okay, that's it for this month.
Is that it? Okay. Yeah. Okay. We'll leave that going. Okay, then. So unfortunately, it's a sad thing that we've had to come to this position, but election of chair for JEC. Is anybody putting themselves forward for this? Don't all start forward at once now.
If absolutely no one wants to do it, I'll do it. But I'm more than happy. Absolutely anyone else, please step forward. I'm happy to not do it.
Richard, were you stepping forward there, did I see?
Well, I was about to say, who on you is actually on the JEC?
Me.
Rebecca, can I bring you
I'm
in?
not on it, so.
I haven't actually asked her, but Carrie is the vice chair and was doing quite a lot of work to support Carwyn in the work that Jack was doing. So just put that out there.
Should we throw it out, Martin? To see there's
Yeah.
less councillors here.
There's
more
less
weight on
councillors
this
here at
present.
the moment. We put it out there into the ether and
Good idea. I don't really want to do it.
no.
I'm thinking of you, Will.
Yeah.
Thanks, Gary. Good idea, mate.
Chair, I realise it's difficult with not many councillors, but the standing order states that the chair of JEC is decided by council rather
All
than.
right, rather than thing.
And I would point out that you do have a sort of policy of not really having one person doing more than one chair role as well. That's normally has certainly been the sort of in the past, so that everyone has a share of.
So, Will, are you chair of anything?
Unless no, I'm not chair of anything. Unless Richard or Gareth, I don't think they're chair of anything. But everyone else here is a chair of something, aren't they?
Subcommittee, that's don't count, does it?
And I'm not on the JEC, so I can't go in anyway. So
I'm not on it either.
Anyone can.
Oh, go on, chuck it in. I'll do it. Go on. I'm on JEC and I'm not chair of anything. I'll take it.
Okay.
There we are. I vote for Gareth.
Dan,
yeah, I'll vote for him.
well volunteered, Gareth.
Pressurised, but go on.
Yeah. Thank you, Gareth. That's great. Right. Oh, sorry about this. Right. Right. Draft policy on recording photography and use of social media at council meetings. Now, I know this has been an issue which has been a bit of a bugbear, a bit of an area of discussion between various councillors. Some people have got some views on it, some people have got opposing views on it. So I've done a bit of background reading and a bit of research on this. In relation to members of the public tweeting and using Facebook at our meetings. Correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, on this, but as I understand it, there's nothing we can do about that.
Sorry, say that again. I didn't hear.
When it comes to members of the public, when we're back to full council meetings, when it comes to members of the public tweeting or using social media at our meetings, there's nothing that we can do about that. And also taking photographs. Is that the case? Could you just confirm that?
It's not the case, but I think that it's something that we're strongly encouraged to allow. And I think part of what this does is sets that out and the rules for doing that. So that's part one of the point of the motion, isn't it?
Yeah, because if you have a look at it, in England at the moment, it is actually the directive for local councils to broadcast or record their meetings. This is not the case in Wales at the moment, although the directives coming from the Welsh Government seem to be recommending it. My own feeling is it might not be the case in Wales at the moment, but there's a good chance that it probably will be within the next year or so. We've gone through the process through COVID of recording our meetings and putting those online. I've put together this draft proposal for a policy on recording photography and use of social media. The thing is, we are a public body. We are open to scrutiny. My own feeling is, again, on this, is the greater the transparency that we display, the bigger, the more chance we have of building up trust with our community. Because if we keep things quiet, if we keep things in camera, people are thinking, well, what are they doing behind closed doors? So I put together this draft policy laying out basically that when, yes, meetings can be recorded, they will be recorded by us. But if there are any instances where we need to go in camera, then we can do that. This will be at the discretion of the chair and at discretions of the council. So really, I just wanted to throw it out there for discussion, for debate, and for the council to vote on it. Rob, over to you.
I'm very much against this proposal. Any member of the public has the opportunity to join in for these meetings, as they do, to turn up to a live meeting where we're all present at. Those who don't turn up to a live meeting don't have a recording of that meeting to listen to. I find it very intrusive to have people you don't know and have never met almost in your home in this situation. And I know it's put off a number of other councillors turning up to these online meetings because of that. We can be transparent without having these recorded. I think it's actually a little bit of an infringement on our rights as councillors and as individuals. You know, if we're all going for transparency and it's up to the chair to, you know, have the authority to stop the meeting and things like that, then I sort of object to the fact that in the last full council meeting, we'll stop the meeting to sort of badmouth Margaret Thrush. So if we're going for transparency,
excuse me, Rob, point of order, please, point of order. I didn't badmouth Margaret Thrush at all, and I want you to withdraw that because this has been recorded and that did not happen. That's completely a false accusation. I'd like you to admit it because that's recorded.
Can you, the pair of you, calm this down? I think probably the use of badmouth is not the most wise choice of words.
Maybe that was the wrong choice of word. But if there's nothing that, you know, we're afraid of the public hearing, why was the meeting suspended for that point? I really do think we should not support this motion.
Okay. Anybody else want to make anything? Rebecca, Richard, and then Will.
Thanks, Martin. I didn't interpret this policy, I think, in quite the same way as Rob has. I interpreted it as a policy that covers us for mainly in face-to-face meetings, just making sure it's clear what the expectations of the public are if they do come to those meetings. And of course, it's got reference to the fact that we're in, you know, Zoom/Teams world at the moment. And I think it's important that we do set out the expectations to the public, but, you know, in case we do end up in a situation where, you know, one of the very good points in the policy is around not doctoring any footage or photos taken that's in a way that could be misleading, because we've seen that happen on the national and international stage, and to, you know, really detrimental effect. So I think that things like that are important. I think the point I'd like to raise on this is that I think some of the issues around use of social media have not necessarily been by members of the public, and therefore we would need perhaps an additional section to this policy that sort of clearly puts in black and white some of the new ways of working that I think we've agreed as a council. So things like when we've made a big decision as a council, that it gets announced through MCC channels, and then for individual councillors to support, to promote it and support it that way. I think some of those things are really good developments that are supporting us to be a more productive and collegiate council that are actually getting things done. And I would like to see those things put in this policy as well.
Thank you, Rebecca. Richard?
I'm all for honesty, integrity and transparency and all the rest of it, as I think we all are. However, if we're going to open ourselves up even more so that members of the public can quickly stick comments on social media even more than they already do, my concern is it's difficult enough getting people to stand as councillors. Yeah? I mean,
and remain as councillors.
Yeah. Why would you do it? I think we're all here for the right reasons, although we sometimes disagree. But I think we want to encourage more people to stand and opening ourselves up, not to scrutiny, but to potential abuse, if you like. It make it even less a desirable position. That's my concern.
Richard? Will?
Yeah, I think it's recorded meetings is, it encourages transparency. I mean, that's why you vote to convene a meeting, isn't it? The chair says, I'd like to convene a meeting. Can we have a vote on it? If that's the chair's discretion, that's obviously a different conversation for the council to have. But there is a reason for convening things, Rob, and there's lots of reasons. I mean, financially sensitive things, or things that might be, sensitive, which we talked about the last meeting, for example. There's lots of reasons for convening meetings, and I don't get your point there at all, and it's wound me up quite a lot, to be honest.
Rob?
I think, there's certain things which are sensitive, and for that reason, when we're talking about our staff, or we're talking about, a lease or something like that, then yes, of course, meetings can be convened. On other things, I don't see the point. What we've also got to think of is not just ourselves, but we employ staff as well. And I know one member of staff has approached me and said she's not very happy about, doesn't like the recorded meetings. I know Carwyn was not a fan of the recorded meetings. As we've got two different issues here. We've got one about the live things. I don't particularly want somebody taking a photo of me if we're all in a room together without my permission. If we did that, we'd have to ask permission to do that. So why are we being sort of treated differently? And then, of course, you've got the online stuff. I'm happy for people to turn up to meetings and see, but I don't like the fact that these are recorded and then available to all and sundry.
Rob,
I think it's...
can I ask you a question just to clarify something?
Yeah.
Would you be so unhappy about the situation if it was in a public arena, and if we were back to the situation where we were in a council meeting in the council offices? Or is your objection more because you're at home and sort of stuff like that?
That's a fair question, Martin. I think I'd be just as unhappy at it, because people are able to turn up to meetings. They're able to come into our online meetings as well. And if they can't do that, then why should we be supplying things? I think with online meetings, especially like this, people are afraid to say certain things if they know that they're there, especially when you've got a certain Mr. whoever writing down notes of everything that's said and then reporting on social media. Now, we can't stop him doing that, but we don't have to put something up on the website for him to, listen to back verbatim, and transcribe it and spin it. And as you said, Rebecca, things can be edited. Live videos can be edited. Live audio can be edited and spun and changed.
Rebecca, do you want to come in on that? Yeah.
Yeah, just to clarify what you said at the beginning, Martin, my understanding is similar to yours, which is that we can't actually stop people recording if they choose to.
Again, if people turn up at a public meeting and they want to, I'm not. Steve seems to be saying that it is against the law. As I said, I've sort of done a bit of research on it. It's like if you're in a public space, the law as it stands at the moment, and Rob has got a good point there. Law as it stands at the moment, if you're in a public space and somebody takes a photograph of you, you have got no comeback on that at all legally. It is good manners that you ask somebody's permission and stuff like that, but legally there is no issue. So my sort of main concern in relation to all this is, I suppose, how we manage it and how maybe we control the narrative rather than if the narrative runs away with us. The point that, you picked up there, Rebecca, is if people do start altering, the all sort of stuff that Rob's making there about people posting stuff about us on social media and stuff like that, which does happen. And, you've seen the stuff yourself. Some of it is complete and utter nonsense. But if we've got the recording of it, and if we've got it recorded, we can turn around and say, well, hold on, I didn't say that. But if somebody says, well, I was there, they did say that, and we haven't got that proof. It is a double-edged sword. I'm trying to be impartial, a bit as the chair. I think, I have got my own point of view of it, which I think is in the document. But at the same time, I thoroughly and utterly understand, I've talked to Rob before about it, I've talked to Carwyn before about it, both of whom have had misgivings about it. So as I said, it's a double-edged sword, but I think the best way to sort this out is we discuss it as a council. Richard?
We have minutes of meetings anyway, and that is the law as to what was said.
Yeah.
Okay, the ones at the moment we're recording, why do we need to go even further? That's another question I have.
What do you mean? Why do we need to go further than just taking minutes?
Yeah.
Well, it's like Stalin said that he who takes the minutes writes history.
Yeah.
Minutes can be manipulated, but anyway,
I mean, can I jump in? I mean, I know you meant that with a pinch of salt. We wouldn't never alter any minutes, but when you think of the big things we've just pushed through, right? Skate park, Underhill, massive amounts of money. People want to know that what's happened there, Imagine that wasn't recorded and wasn't put online. That huge amounts of money. I can't imagine what the backlash would have been on that, to be honest.
Okay, can I have Rebecca and then we'll Rob, please?
Yeah, I just would say, the minutes are a recording of our decisions. And it's very easy to see a decision for just what the decision is, rather than all of the quite detailed discussion that went into it. And for that reason, I think it is important that people get to hear more of what was said rather than just reading past or not past.
Yeah. Rob, do you want to?
I sort of disagree with Rebecca on that last bit. I think people see the minutes, they see the decisions. When we are sent the minutes ourselves to approve of each committee, we don't see the discussion, we see the decisions. Now, there could be somebody who is not a member of this council watching this now. If they had logged in, they could have a little pen here with a camera and they could be recording the entire screen and we wouldn't know about it. Now, are you happy for that to happen? I'm not.
Yeah, I'm a public figure. I'm an elected public figure, so that's part of the thing that comes with it.
Rebecca?
Well, I hadn't actually thought there, Will. I was going to say, on about the pictures, how many times have you ever seen somebody take a picture of Swansea Council chamber? I've never seen one online of somebody being to a meeting and taking a picture of the meeting or recording there. They could. What you're basically saying is people could sit there with a recorder on their phone and record.
Probably because the meetings are recorded and they don't have to.
Okay, Rebecca, can I bring you in?
And I really feel that the point of this policy is to stop things like that happening. Like if somebody wanted to sit there with a secret pen recording this screen, they just would. But the point of the policy is to say, if you want to have any recording of anything, approach the clerk, make sure we're aware, so that we have got a kind of level of expectation of what behaviour is acceptable. And no, I don't think a secret pen is acceptable, but it's also not acceptable under this policy.
Yeah, but this is one I think I'm trying to get, is that we take control of the narrative, because I'm worried that we can lose control of the narrative, because people will be within their lights. They can come to council meetings whichever way, and they can conceal recording equipment amongst them. But if we're recording it ourselves, we can turn around and sort of say, no, this is the thing. Ian, do you want to come in? I think the best course of action that we can do in this, because we're quite a restricted group at the moment, quite a diminished group at the moment, is can we use this as a basis of a discussion document that we go back to the rest of the council, open it up to debate, get people to think about it, get people to reflect on the thing, get people to contribute to this as a draft document. There might be aspects, Rob, that you might not be happy about, you might want to contribute a bit. Can we change this a bit or something like that? But the reason for me bringing this to council tonight was just to get this discussion going, because this discussion is going to come back to us whichever way. Because already we're seeing people have welcomed, some people have welcomed the fact that we are recording our meetings and putting them online. When we stop doing that, people will be asking, well, why are they stopping doing that? And we will have to come up with a reason for that. One of the things I would say as well, and it's a terrible thing to say, but one of the things I would say is that recording meetings, I think, has got some benefit in improving councillor behaviour as well. Sorry thing to say, but that's the truth. So can we resolve to do that? Yeah. Steve, did you want to come in? Or?
Yeah, I was just going to ask, what about this meeting and future meetings in the interim? Because that's one of the things on the proposal was.
Well, this is the way things are. We've been pushed into this situation by the COVID-19 crisis. We've had to go to online meetings. We have recorded those meetings. Personally, I think it's been useful as a thing, but I don't think we're in a position today to make a decision, no, we're going to stop those meetings. If in the future we make the decision that we're not going to record the meetings and hold them as an archive, then we can delete those meetings then. I think that's fair enough. Okay. Can we move on?
Yeah.
E-scooter proposal we've done. Right, personnel terms of reference. This is in the documentation again. The personnel committee met last week, and one of the things that has been a feature of the personnel committee up until this point is that a lot of the activities of the personnel committee, and it is in the standing orders. Oh, hi, Rebecca Singh is there. Hi, Rebecca. And it is in the terms of reference. Hi, Rebecca. So it's very intense. In the terms of reference is that the proceedings of the personnel committee will be confidential, and the minutes of the personnel committee will be confidential. Now, again, I did some research and delving into this, in particular to One Voice Wales, and I could see nothing in the guidelines saying that that we should have it confidential. I can understand why certain aspects of the personnel committee do need to be confidential, and I think that needs to continue. But as it stands at the moment, there are 3 sections in the personnel terms of reference which say that the proceedings need to be confidential and the minutes need to be confidential. Now, I've given examples and I've circulated those in the documentation of a way I feel that we can present personnel proceedings in a more generic way, because one of my feelings is that the Personnel Committee is a committee that is responsible for quite a significant outlay. Wages, obviously, are a significant outlay of Mumbles Community Council. So what I am proposing to Council is that we remove that generic approach to confidentiality within the Personnel Committee. This was agreed by the Personnel Committee, and this has been referred to the full Council for ratification. Anybody can have a look at that. Has anybody got any questions? Anybody would like to say anything? So are we happy to pass that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much for that. Okay. Right. Tender a project manager for placemaking West Cross top shops. You've seen the proposal, which is in the pack. Thank you for Steve really for putting that together. Anybody got any observations, anything that they want to raise about this? Rebecca, I thought you might.
Yeah, so I just wanted to feedback on a few developments really on the top shops planning. So myself and Gareth met with Mark Child and Ben from Urban Foundry yesterday. Yeah. The idea there is to have a 3-person working group, 1 person from economic, 1 person from environmental, and city councillor, because obviously there need to be quite significant city council engagement to get the project off the ground. And so the 3 of us just met to sort of start thinking about the next steps. I actually haven't had a chance to have a look at the proposal in OneDrive. When I looked at OneDrive, it wasn't there a few days ago, so apologies if this is talking over that. But basically what we identified as the need at the moment, we want to get something off the ground on a temporary basis in the next 2 to 3 months. So we want to have something, really fast, so that we can start seeing whether it works. And we also need to make sure it's up in time to actually have a benefit to the businesses on that patch during what's going to be the worst time of the year, so November through to March. And so that meeting identified that we would need some consultant time to draw up some plans of what's possible on that patch, advise on the key stakeholders to get permissions from, and basically get us moving. And then we can go from there, really. There was an estimate that would come to a maximum of around £10,000. Mark is happy to put a contribution in from his city councillor pot. So it wouldn't be, the total amount wouldn't be MCC spend, but I think that is something that we would like to, as this is on the agenda, obviously it's not normal for us to have a meeting and the next day be bringing it to full council, but as it's on the agenda, that's something that we wanted to bring up here. Did you want to add, Gareth?
Yeah, only that as you're aware at the moment, small businesses can apply for grants for chairs and tables and stuff as well. So some of the funding for that shared space in Top West Cross could come from the businesses as well. So the actual contribution from MCC might be a lot less than the £10,000 at the whole project.
Yeah, sorry, I should have been clear that 10,000 is not just for the consultation at the beginning. The consultation
as a whole project.
The whole project.
And Ben has already done some work on it, and he presented some of it to the shared space meeting that you had, the workshop. He said he gives some examples of that workshop. So I think it's a good idea having the project manager, but I think with the one at the Top West Cross, we need to move quicker than going through the process of a tender. I'm nothing against a project manager, but maybe we need to move it a bit quicker with West Cross and then still appoint a project manager for future projects regarding shared space.
Yeah, point of information. Unfortunately, we have to be seen to put out a tender for any work like this.
Yeah.
And that is why, anticipating the need for the urgency, Paul's draft, we drafted
that
this thing. so we can
I think-
hit the ball road running as quickly as possible. So that's why we're asking to support this
Okay.
motion.
Can I bring
Ben-
Rebecca
Ben-
in then Will? Sorry. Can I bring Rebecca in and then Will?
Sorry, yeah. So the last thing to add was, well, actually, if Will got his hand up, he might be about to say the same thing, which was there has been a suggestion that we tender for what's effectively a call-off contract. So we have one supplier who would be able to advise on any shared space project like this. Will and I have spoken about that. I don't think there's any objection to that in principle. I've just made the point that with the top shops, we're looking for a lot of speed. So thank you to Steve and Paul for the background work that you've done so that we are able to discuss this so quickly after that initial conversation yesterday.
I get a point of information, Chair. That is in the proposal for future work, so that's already part of the
It's a, fair play to Steve and Paul on this. I think they've struck preemptively, as it were. Will, did you want to come in?
Steve, sorry, can you just talk through that in a bit more detail?
Well, rather than have to...
I did speak to Paul about it a while ago, just about a number of things, but I didn't know it was in there. Could you speak a bit more detail about the longevity?
Just to quickly, this follows the training we had. I spoke to Ben the following day, discussed various things, and then I spoke to Paul about putting a proposal together. And rather than for us to have to appoint someone for each project, so West Cross Shops, and then if we want some consultancy on the prom to do with the sea wall and so on, that there's the clause in there to allow us to reappoint for future projects without having to each time go out for tender.
Okay, that sounds perfect. I'm happy to support that. How long a period is that? Because is that like 5 years, 3 years, or it can't obviously be indefinitely, can it?
It wasn't. There was a debate between whether it should be 12 months or 36 months. And Paul, the RFO's thoughts are that it would be better to do it for 12 months in the first instance.
Okay. Rebecca?
Right, so in the last 3 minutes while everyone's been speaking, I have now read the proposal at
Well done. Speed reading.
And it actually is like these guys read mine and Gareth's minds, I think. So just to say that from the perspective of those of us that are working on the top shop specifically, it seems to really do the job, and we'd be keen to get moving as quickly as possible.
Okay, so I'm keen to move things on. Can we just vote to accept that, or anybody got any objections to it? All in favour? There we go. Accept that then. Okay. And then the next one then is the Digital Archive videographer. Who's going to speak to this? I will. Yes, that will be a statement now.
Yeah, hi. As you might remember, we had a budget for the digital archive. We've still got a grant application which I've been working on with Swansea University for the whole digital archive with Gareth Thomas at Swansea University. It's not quite ready to circulate amongst the archive group yet, but hopefully in the next couple of weeks it will be. We can't submit it till October anyway because the Heritage Lottery have suspended all grants due to COVID. So obviously time goes on these things, so we thought, well, what can we do in the interim? A big part of what we want to do is document local history in video form, and some local characters and some locations and things. What we want to do in the first instance is put out a tender, and it's almost like a trial, Steve, isn't it? That I think it was your idea that we sort of test the waters with a number of hopefully local contractors that come forward, but obviously anyone can apply to the tender. And whoever is the best at producing those things, then maybe we'd obviously have to resubmit the tender, but they'd be in a good place obviously going forward. So basically, what the proposal is to capture an interview with a local person of note and a location. So there's 3 separate tenders, and it will be each one will be appointed to one tender will be a location and a person of note. So they'll interview a person on camera, and they'll also do a completely separate video of something, for example, like Mumbles Lighthouse. Then the second tender will be, for example, an interview with someone local and Mumbles Rugby Club. And these things are all up for debate, the actual locations and people, but we've got some ideas as a committee, but that's the tender. Steve, is there any comments on that?
No.
Carrie, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I'm just slightly confused about saying it's a series of separate tenders, because I've just, like Rebecca, just speed read the and it just seems to be a tender. I can't see anywhere where there's a series of different tenders.
No, Carrie, it's one tender and then 3 will be chosen from those applying.
Right, sorry.
Rob, did you want to come in?
Just one thing, Will. We've got down there at the moment a 10-minute video. I think we should maybe take out the 10 minutes rather than put a time on it, because I know 10 minutes of video is actually quite an awful lot. I think you could be able to tell from 2 or 3 minutes, first of all, if you like the idea, the way they film, the way they present it. I think the cost of doing a 10-minute video might add up to more than the £1,500. So if we could maybe just take the 10-minute sort of stipulation off that. Otherwise, I'm happy.
Yeah, I think the reason we wanted to put a time limit on it was to get an idea of a slightly longer topic, I think. But yeah, happy to take any specific time off. And obviously, if a videographer wasn't to cover the subject as good as we would hope, then they'd be shooting themselves in the foot, wouldn't they? So yeah.
Okay. So considering that if there's nobody else wants to contribute to the debate, considering that this is already a budget.
I think Rebecca's got a hand up, Chair.
Has she?
No, sorry, carry
on. Considering this is a budget which is already allocated, are we happy to proceed with this? Anybody okay? Yes, there we go. Okay, so we move on to the appointment of local dispute resolution panel. This has come from, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier in my chair's report. This is something that comes from a proposal which is in the Alan Thomas's review of our processes and structure. So what we're looking for is basically 2 councillors who will be the first 2 go-to people when a dispute occurs between 2 councillors or more than 2 councillors. The go-to people for just starting the discussion and getting that dispute resolved. So again, I'm putting it out there to the council as we stand there at the moment. Will, did you want to say something, or are you?
Yeah, I thought we agreed 3 people, Carrie, didn't we?
No, this is this isn't the personnel appraisal committee. This is the kind of, the disputes between councillors committee.
Yeah. Okay. If that is the case, I'd suggest, seeing as we have a politically made up council with no independence, I'd suggest that we had,
Well, that is in Alan Thomas's report as well, that we have one from each side, the good side and the bad side. So with that in mind, Rebecca Singh, are you coming in?
You're on mute.
You're on mute, Rebecca.
There we are. No, yeah, I was reading the report on my screen above it there. Sorry. Yeah, I was agreeing.
All right. Okay then. So with that, Caroline, did you want to come in?
No, I was just going to say, I just wanted a clarification. Are we at this, are we nominating people,
Yes.
or are we just agreeing the principle?
I thought we were nominating people.
Yep, that's fine. I just wanted to
Okay.
check.
Anybody? Can I make a suggestion? Can I
nominate Ian?
Ian?
Yeah.
Can I make a nomination of Rebecca?
Yeah.
Caroline?
Yeah, Carrie is my name. I know what it says different.
I just
I would like
the screen, I'm sorry.
I would like to nominate Gareth and Pip.
Gareth and Pip. Pip's not here, the problem.
I know. But I don't think, we've got a very small number here, so
yeah, we have got a small number.
so perhaps we should put some names forward and then consult with those recommendations if they are
okay,
happy
then,
to be put forward.
Shall we put those names in the hat and then put it out to the wider council? Are we able to do that?
Well, no, Chair, we might as well not bother having a council meeting if we've got only a few councillors. This is exactly, it's not a huge thing. We might as well turn quorum to 10 then, if that's going to be the case.
Somebody's been nominated who's not here, and it's only fair that they have an opportunity to say whether they wish to be nominated or not.
I suppose they should have had a prior conversation and emailed in then, maybe.
Well, yeah, and they did know it was on the agenda. I'll hand it over to council. Anybody else got any views on this? Richard?
See, as Will said, we've got the full council meeting here. Names have been nominated from both sides.
Yeah.
We could take the vote.
Yeah, I think we go to vote. But yeah. Steve?
Sorry to interrupt. Just to point out, it's 2 councillors and 2 reserve members, so you could appoint all 4 that have been mentioned so far.
Are we okay to go with that? We appoint all 4? And we appoint all 4 to that committee, and then when a dispute arises, we put it to those 4 to address it. Okay? All thumbs up, that's what I like to see. Happy councillors.
I'm just confirming, Martin, that when you said Rebecca.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Because I did say
I got away with that.
I did say one from each side, didn't I?
I just assume it's always you, Rebecca, because you make the effort. I've got a team of zombie warriors to contend with right now.
Don't be like that, Rebecca.
A lot of effort, so it takes focus a little bit.
Right. So I'm glad that we've moved forward. Maybe that will help us go forward with dispute resolution now, as I highlighted in my chair's report. Right. Recommendations made with the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee. Who is speaking to that?
Me.
Rebecca, I thought it would be, yeah.
Yeah. Sorry, you can't see my face and me see the agenda, which is a bit of a problem.
Yeah, that's why you need 2 computers.
Do you want to just tell me what order they're in?
Yeah, I can do that. Is update on Underhill.
And the proposal is?
Well, it's recommended that the delegated powers be given to the RFO to tender and appoint the shadow project manager.
Right, yeah, sorry. Yeah, so it is what it says on the tin, basically. This was following a recommendation from Gareth Kiddy, who we asked to give us some advice on how we progress Underhill. Seemed to be pretty uncontentious within the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee because it gives us that extra reassurance that everything is going according to plan. And the cost of the Shadow Project Manager would come out of the funding package that's already been agreed.
Okay, anybody get any observations, any comments on that? Are we okay to agree the recommendation? Yes, okay, we agree the recommendation. Right, grant application to Oystermouth School.
Sorry, I think I'm not sure if I'm supposed to declare an interest or not. I'm governor at Oystermouth.
I would have thought so, surely, Steve. Is that correct?
Yeah, it would be a personal interest, not a prejudicial one, since you represent the council. Is that right, Carrie?
I do indeed, yes.
So you can speak and vote on the motion.
Yeah. And while we're here, I'm obviously an allotment holder at Lower Norton Allotment Society. So I suspect that's a personal and prejudicial.
Okay.
My children attend Oystermouth.
Does anybody not have an interest in this, this resolution? So just to say that this grant application came in some time ago, and we went back to them for some further information, particularly to confirm that facilities would be available during holiday clubs and things, so that it's those facilities are a benefit to the wider community. And they came back to confirm that was a yes, and on that basis that we are recommending that it is approved.
I'm sure we have raised this before, but haven't we raised why they're not putting any funding towards it themselves?
Yeah, that was going to be my question.
I am aware that they weren't able to do any fundraising as a PTA this year because of COVID, and their coffers are dry. I'm not a member of the PTA, and I don't know, but I know that I know that is the case. They usually do like a end of year barbecue and stuff. Maybe Carrie knows more.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, as a governor, that's exactly what the issue has been, that all the fundraising activities that obviously the vast majority of which take place over the summer, obviously they haven't been able to do. You know, it would take them until this time next year to be able to raise, you know, money towards this. And this is something that really is important and will be of huge benefit, not just to the kids who go there, but other kids who go to holiday clubs and after school clubs and all the rest. So I think
just as a point of
fair in the
interest,
circumstances that we.
And just to the point of interest of my own interest here, it says it's available. Is it just available for kids who attend after school club, or is it available when the
No, there's a whole range of other people that use it.
But it won't be available when the school is closed, that's what I'm saying.
The school is very rarely closed because a lot of other organisations use it throughout the summer.
But an answer to a straight answer to your question, Martin, is no. When the school is actually closed, it won't just be as a family from up the street. You won't just be able to go and use them.
Okay, that's just what I was trying to get down to.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, this is the recommendation. Should I put it to council? All those in favour? Okay, that's passed then, I take it. Okay. Grant application to Mumbles Bowls Club.
Okay, so this engendered slightly more conversation because a little while ago there was an agreement made that we would be looking to the Bowls Club to make themselves a bit more sustainable before we sort of provided them with any more money. They've had a lot of funding in the past. However, the basis of the application is purely on COVID grounds. So they've really not had a chance to, recruit members or be getting members pay their subs because they've not been able to use the grounds, and therefore they've got a funding deficit for the maintenance for this year. So I think we might even have suggested, Steve, that we ask them to come in, or was that the next one? But basically we want to make sure that we're clear to them that the sustainability is still an important issue for us, but in the context of COVID, given that it's quite a small amount of money, we're willing to recommend this to full council.
Just make one comment that the Bowls Club have allowed because they did have the ability to stop it. A croquet club that's recently set up, so which was increased usage and income for them towards the maintenance. So I think that's an example of them making an effort there as well.
Yeah, and it's good to see him so active, to be honest. As some bowls clubs you see, you don't see any activity at all. Anybody else?
I have noticed on the application that it is 398 out of 784 funds, so it is virtually half the amount of money they're asking.
That's let's be honest, it's not a lot of money. Okay, put it to a vote. Are we happy to recommend that?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, that's gone through as well. Lower Norton Allotment Society.
I think I probably have to absent myself because I'm an allotment holder. So,
Okay.
Steve, presumably you have a means to kick me out and then bring me back in.
Yeah, I should do that now.
Oh, I've got a big
Use that
Steve.
more often.
Yeah, stop smiling everywhere. Right.
I'm smiling because you've all come up really big on my screen now since
there we
Carrie's
go.
gone. Anyway, so again, I don't think this one's particularly contentious. It seems like a good use of funds. They're providing a lot of the manpower behind it themselves to reduce costs.
Person power.
Person power. Well called out, Martin. So we're happy to recommend this to full council.
Can I come in on this one?
Yeah, sure, yeah.
With regards to the allotments, the responsibility of the allotments overall rested with City and County of Swansea, and they deemed it necessary to discharge that responsibility to the individual allotmenteers. Now, I was involved in that at a very early juncture, and one of the things that concerned me was a scenario that's in front of us now, disposal of waste and continue to improve the accessibility of pathways, etc. Now, that waste hasn't arrived there overnight. That waste would have been there when the City and County of Swansea had a certain responsibility with the allotments. Now, not only is it a waste matter, we have issues with the allotments adjacent to Castle Road, overhanging branches, etc. Breach of fencing, which has compromised the allotmenteers' sheds because they've been broken into. Now, it looks as if we could have a number of applications for grants from the allotmenteers. And my point is that this should have been sorted out before the allotmenteers took it over from City.
Can I just add, Ian? I think the disposal of waste is mainly the waste associated with clearing up the paths a bit. To completely take your point that some of this maintenance would have been done by City and County, but it's not we wouldn't be funding the regular disposal of waste. It's to do with this specific work to clear some of the paths, make them a bit wider and a bit, just a bit more accessible, basically, and the waste associated with that work.
Well, I'm not sure if that is the case, having read the article from Mr. Lane, but I take what you say. It's just that this issue was foreseen a long time ago when I was approached by the representatives of the allotments, and I was disenfranchised, shall we say, and it was taken over by others.
Well,
and it would appear that nothing else has happened.
Well, maybe this is an instance of where we need to pursue a similar course of action as that suggested with the Bowls Club, where maybe we need to communicate to this particular group that, okay, we can help on this particular occasion, but this cannot be an ongoing situation, and that alternative sources of funding need to be identified.
Martin,
Well,
can I
it's not very, sorry, Rebecca. It's not very long ago that we put a new tap in for them.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I was
So
thinking about, yeah.
this is something, and then the one then at there was another one near the cricket club. We gave them a new shed.
Yeah.
So I'm a great supporter of the allotments. I'm not against the grant. I'm just making the point that these matters ought to have been resolved at an earlier juncture.
And a very good point, Ian. Do you want to hand over to Rebecca?
So I was just going to make the suggestion that, the Community and Social Committee kind of take an action from this to convene a meeting, not just of this allotments, but of representatives from all the allotments in the area, to just have a conversation about what issues they foresee coming up, so that we can have a kind of a more coordinated approach rather than thinking about each application as it comes in. Because as Ian says, it will be a longer standing issue, and we can talk then as well about what are the mechanisms and avenues they're looking for funding and things like that. We can support that way.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we go forward on that basis then?
Yeah.
So we're happy to recommend this particular thing, but ongoing we go.
Yes, happy to grant it.
Okay then. Right. So let Carrie back in now. Questions for the chair?
Have we done the castle grant, Martin? Isn't that in there?
That's what I was just looking. No, that one.
Do you mean the grant for the maintenance at Oystermouth Castle, Rob?
That's the one.
There was one they'd asked for £10,000.
Yeah, so I was going to bring that up in questions. I was going to ask a question to myself so that I could tell you about that.
That's a novel approach.
So that did come in. Obviously, it's a massive grant. It's not the few hundred quid that we're looking at for the others. We did not have sufficient information to be making a decision on that amount of money. So we've asked Steve to invite the applicant to our next Community and Social Committee meeting so that we can discuss that in more detail and come back with a more informed proposal to full council.
Hi, if I can just ask you, Rebecca, as I understand it, they're asking for £10,000 because of the loss of revenue from the public. As I understand it, Oystermouth Castle is owned by City and County and not Cadw. So they haven't raised, they're asking for the whole amount. They haven't applied anywhere else. So why are City and County not paying this?
Yeah, I think these are all questions that I can answer because it wasn't available in the application, and they're all important questions that we'll be asking at the meeting, which hopefully we'll have a representative at.
My heart wants to say yes, it'd be lovely sport, but at the end of the day, we're not responsible for it.
Yeah, I'm just thin end of the way. Anyway, but that's almost like academic, really. It says here, questions for Chair of Community and Social Wellbeing Committee. That's the one I just did, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just asked a question to myself. Any other questions? Not from me?
That's what I was thinking, yeah.
No.
Grant request from Sculpture by the Sea.
Chair, can I just explain why this is on the agenda? This was originally submitted earlier this year and was put on the committee meeting that was meant to be held, but then was cancelled due to the COVID crisis. So it got missed off a meeting and then hasn't been put on since. Because of COVID, the applicant didn't chase us up and so on. So so I put it on directly rather than going through the chair because she wants to now, the restrictions have stopped. She wants to get on with doing the actual festival.
And what are the plans for doing this Sculpture by the Sea with the schools, considering?
There's an application form which goes through that. So she normally goes to all of our schools and does a workshop. Plus they have festival events at about 3 or 4 locations in the Mumbles Community Council area. It's something the council actually has supported for perhaps a decade now.
Okay. Anybody got any point of view? anything to comment on that? So I will put it to the vote. Are we happy to okay that?
Yeah.
Okay, I will right with that. Recommendations by the Economic Wellbeing Committee. Ian, this wall mural?
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is something that was discussed at Economic, and we decided that it should come to full council for approval. The figures are there in front of you. If you've got the agenda, have you all got the agenda in front of you?
Yeah.
Anyway, we did go through the appropriate process of getting 3 quotes. However, we only had it back from 1, and that was Fresh Creative. The quote came in at 1950 plus VAT, and also with a proviso that a £250 deposit before any artwork is provided. The recommendation that's before you is for a painting of a wall mural on the site of the former Covelli's chip shop building, and to be agreed subject to the successful negotiations with the owner of the building. As I'm sure most of you are aware, the gable end of the building isn't in a position to receive such a project because it would need to be rendered. Claire Anderson has been dealing with Mr. Quinn, the proprietor of the building, and well, it's there. If you agree, that's the proposal.
Can I just ask you a question on the dealing with the owner? How far is that? I mean, is he happy with it, or is it just the negotiations just starting?
Well, I've actually had no party to the negotiations in any shape or form. Mr. Quinn seemed very amenable to the idea. However, you know, he's a very busy, pressurized man.
Yeah.
And so that's about all I can say. I can't give you a yes. It's approval in principle we're after here.
Yeah. The only thing I'd like added, Chair, is Steve Quinn, the guy who owns the building. He's obviously a property developer. You know, I don't know what he's got planned for the building. He might not even know what he's got planned for the building. And should we spend a lot of money doing a mural and then obviously he decides to knock it down? I'm sure that's probably not the case, but I think we should have at least a letter of intent from him to say, I don't plan to do anything to this building, or I'm not you know, something along those lines. But yeah, happy to support it, but just want to be a little bit cautious that it's going to be there for a long time to get the money's worth, really.
Yeah,
I think that's fair comment.
Yeah, and I think I've got sort of similar misgivings in as much as we haven't got agreement at the moment. To be honest, it just reminds me so much of something I was involved in about 6-7 years ago, where we painted a mural on the side of a building. This was in Merthyr, and it was very popular and very successful with the local community. And then the owner painted over it about a year later. So all the money that we'd spent on it was just, and it caused a lot of sort of bad feeling in the community. So I think I'm saying the same as Will, really, is in principle, I got no problem with this, but I think that we need to do a bit more negotiation with the owner before we commit this. Richard?
Yeah, the £250 deposit, is that included in the 1950 price plus the VAT?
I think so.
Yes, that would be an inclusive, I would suggest.
Okay.
Carrie?
Yeah, first to reiterate really what Will's just said, because there was a general kind of information around the village that it was going to be knocked down. Now, at the moment it's being used as a site office. That use obviously is very shortly going to be unnecessary. So I do think we need to have some sort of very firm commitment that the building is not planned to be knocked down in the next, say, 5 years. Would be, I think, a reasonable timescale. And the second question is, the original plan was to put it on the side of Newton Pack Meals.
Oh, that was.
Why has that moved? I've not heard anything coming to council that explains why it's no longer going to be there, which is a very prominent site that we know will still be there in 10 years' time. Why has it moved?
Right, the reason that it moved from the Chinese takeaway, because they were not prepared to respond to our requests to
Fair
have
enough.
a mural on the gable end. So
Yep, that's fair enough.
it was as simple as that. With regards to the building being knocked down, well, who knows? But the reason that it hasn't been knocked down so far is because it's going to compromise the Principality Building Society. So it's very unlikely that it will come down. As far as it being used as an office, they're also using the old Mokwa building.
Okay. Rob, did you want to come in on this? But I'm quite keen to move on.
Well, no. I mean, Ian's answered the question. I was just going to say, basically, the other problem, two problems with the Chinese: the amount of windows on the side of the Chinese makes it hard to get a mural, and also if you're driving up the road, you're looking at the wrong side of the road to see the mural.
So can I suggest then that the way to move forward is on this is to go back and get some clarification from the owner before we commit to anything on this.
I think that's sensible.
Yeah, I think so as well. Everybody happy with that?
Yep.
Okay. So you're happy to move forward with that? Negotiation of leases. Ian, are you going to talk to this? Or?
You're on mute, Ian.
You're mute.
You're on mute, Ian.
Well, the proposal is as read that Premises Subcommittee should negotiate all leases on behalf of MCC, such as the Langland Tennis, Bowls Green and Pavilion, as outlined in the subcommittee's terms of reference.
Seems straightforward to me. Okay, everybody okay with that? Yeah, let's go ahead.
No, hang on, Rebecca.
No,
sorry.
We have questions.
First, then. Carrie first.
Okay, yeah, two things. First of all, it's referred to as being in the terms of reference. Well, I've just checked with the terms of reference of the Community and Social Wellbeing Committee, and that has a very clear terms of reference. It says to explore the potential for community asset transfers of recreational and leisure facilities, which is very clearly what these two are. They're nothing to do with premises, they're recreational leisure facilities. The second thing is the Premises Subcommittee hasn't met since February. It's a completely new committee now. Surely this should be discussed in a clear proposal coming from the current Premises Subcommittee before it's actually discussed by full council.
Well, oh no, sorry, Rebecca, sorry first, and then Will.
Thanks. So my main concern with this, I'm all for involvement of Premises Subcommittee where a lease is involved. You know, it's important that as a subcommittee with responsibility for premises, it has oversight of premises that we have some responsibility for. But the Premises Subcommittee reports into economic, and that will not be an appropriate reporting route for all of the leases. And in particular, Langland is mentioned here. Langland as a project is within the responsibility of Community and Social, and there will be other leases that are similar. So I would be more for a model where when a committee is embarking upon a project where there is a lease involved, there is clear involvement of premises subcommittee, but it is more of a partnership between representatives from the committee that are driving the project, and then representatives from premises subcommittee, so that both parties are in the loop, rather than what we risk at the moment with this proposal is lease gets negotiated by premises, the recommendation goes to economic, it comes to full council, completely bypassing the committee that actually is interested in whether the lease negotiations are successful or not. So
Okay.
I would just want to seek an amendment on to reflect more of a collaborative model.
Okay, thanks for that contribution. Will?
Yeah, I'd like to think the whole council's interested on all the tasks, not just the committee that you're talking about there. I'd like to think we're all equally as passionate about all the projects. There's no point in having a premises committee if we don't negotiate the leases in the premises committee. That's exactly what a premises committee should be doing. I mean, we might as well disband it if this doesn't go through here. There's no point in it existing at all. Asset transfers, as you said, Carrie, exploring asset transfers. I mean, I don't know how that snuck in there anyway, but that's completely different to a lease. An asset transfer is, starting to talk about, right, are we interested in taking this on? Yes, right, now the details to be done, let's pass it to premises. As regards to talking about this is a new committee, they might have new opinions. I mean, you're opening a huge can of worms there. I mean, any new elected council takes on decisions made by an old council and such as committees. I mean, we took on liabilities and decisions when we were all elected in, when was it, 2017, that maybe we would have had different opinions on things that were actually going through at the time that we theoretically could have changed, or I suppose. So I don't agree with that at all. Main point, if we don't negotiate leases in premises, there's no point in having a premises committee.
Okay, thank you for that, Will. Steve, we're going over time now, so we need to...
Yeah, you need to formally suspend standing order.
Yeah.
To continue, yes.
So are we happy to do that for about the next, hopefully 15 minutes? Are we okay with that? Okay.
Yes.
Carrie?
Yeah. I'm not quite sure what Will thinks a community asset transfer is, but I think he'll find it's actually a lease. So that's a rather silly point to make. That
please, Carrie, that sort of language is not acceptable.
But
it's not
I
acceptable.
think I would like
not
to.
Acceptable to call another councillor silly.
Yeah, well, I think then he has to apologise for saying, I don't know how that snuck into their terms of reference.
That's not quite
because that is equally derogatory.
I
don't know who wrote the terms of reference. Did you write them? If so, then I apologise for any reference to you, but I didn't know you wrote them.
Okay. Shall I carry on?
Right. So could we carry on now, please?
Right, yes. Premises subcommittee deals with premises. There are many, many things for premises subcommittee to be dealing with, which have nothing to do with community and recreational facilities, which do not have a single building on them, such as the tennis courts. So I think that's a rather unnecessary comment to say that premises subcommittee has no purpose. There are a large number of things which premises subcommittee should be dealing with, and more than enough to keep it actually very busy. So I don't see why they should be wanting to take on a whole range of other things which are actually the responsibility of other committees and are equally clearly written into what is a main committee, a standing committee, rather than a subcommittee's terms of reference.
Okay. Anybody else got any comments? I would just sort of like to say, I think the point was made that really it probably would have been better in this situation if the premises committee had met beforehand. But it does appear that there does need to be some work done here in relation to clarify in terms of reference in the different committees and ascertaining how the different committees and structures work with each other. The premises committee is meeting tomorrow, as I understand it. I think this is has got to be something which is discussed at premises committee tomorrow. Therefore, some clarification of what is being proposed and what is being intended, and relating that to the terms of reference to the other committees is obviously something that we need to look at and reflect on and agree. So my proposal is that we refer this back to the premises committee for tomorrow to come back to the next full council. Are people in agreement with that?
I mean, we can do, but we have done it already.
Well, I just can't think of any other way forward, Will, at this particular point, other than
you could vote on it always.
But
you know what's going to be talked about at premises, because it's all very well saying we're going to talk about the what is it called, the terms of reference of the committees. So what, are you actually suggesting that both committees review the terms of reference and come to both committees then?
Yes.
Right.
Because as it appears to me at the moment, and to be honest, these things have appeared to me in the past as well, is that there seems to be, and you know, it's understandable how these things occur because these things develop organically, but at times there are conflicts in the terms of reference and not the clarity maybe that we sometimes require, and how we resolve that. You know, the best way to resolve that, in my feeling, is through negotiation, not through confrontation. Rebecca?
Yeah, just to say, what time is premises tomorrow?
6, I think.
So I feel at the moment, just on the basis of the work that we have on at the moment, that the implications for this proposal are probably going to be most keenly felt in the committee that I chair. I would be happy to come to premises, not on premises, but I'd be happy to come for that agenda item so that we can think through those implications. I mean, there will be times in the future where they affect other committees, you know, cultural and tourism might decide to do something to further their aims that involves a lease at some point. But I think that my main issue is around how the premises subcommittee is going to interact with each of the standing committees. So I'd be willing to come and we can talk that through in more detail and then go back and review the standing committee terms of reference as well to make sure they align.
Okay, Carrie?
Yeah, just a point that you actually called for a vote. We made a vote. The majority of people agreed. So I don't see why we're still arguing about it. And your recommendation was that we refer it back to premises subcommittee. 5 people put their hands up. What's the problem?
I interrupted Martin, to be fair, as he was calling for the vote. So that's
well,
the problem.
most people had already put their hands up.
Okay, then. So just to clarify that vote, we refer it back to the premises committee tomorrow. Okay?
Aye.
Okay, right. So
I have to shoot off, Charles.
yeah, that's right. Thank you for your input, Will. Questions to the Chair of the Economic and Wellbeing Committee? Any questions? Questions to the Chair of the Environmental Wellbeing Committee?
Just to make a point that unfortunately the minutes are not actually available on OneDrive. So it would be quite difficult for people to ask questions because they don't actually know what was discussed and the action points that were put forward at that meeting. So should anybody wish to comment, otherwise we'll just go ahead and get on with our work.
Okay then. Point of action for Steve there then. Questions for the Chair of the Culturalism, Tourism Wellbeing Committee? It's a bit of a mouthful now, Rob.
Hey. Hey, if we won't be recorded, I could say something else for us.
Yeah, Bishop and all. Yeah, go on.
Absolutely.
Okay, exclusion of press and public. Turn off the recording, Steve.